And good evening, and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for the City of Thousand Oaks on February 11th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Vice Chair Pletcher.
Here.
Commissioner Lanson.
Here.
Commissioner McMahon.
Here.
Commissioner Newman.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you, recording secretary. And Mr. Parker, any written comments, announcements, supplemental packets, continuances, anything to note tonight?
Yes, Chair. There is a supplemental item for item 7A on your agenda. It's an amendment to condition number 2 to offer a clarification. Staff will be addressing that during their presentation, as well as there's a copy of the proposed amendments available for the public.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. And just before we move on, I don't have any public comments for the evening. If anybody wishes to speak, just need to fill out a public comment card. Doesn't look like anybody is here to speak on public comments, so I will move on to item 6, the consent calendar and minutes of the Planning Commission meeting of December 10th, 2018. Do I have a motion on the minutes? We can go, okay. We can do the old raise hands if we need to. Okay. See. Commissioner Lanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move the consent calendar be moved in.
Any commissioner comments? Would the recording secretary please prepare us for a vote?
Motion carries 3-1 with Commissioner Newman abstaining.
Thank you. And moving on to item 7, would the recording secretary please prepare the first hearing for us tonight?
Hearing advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 7A, SUP 2017-70237, to allow scheduled live entertainment consisting of live bands, disc jockey, master of ceremony, and individual performers located at 4761 Valley Spring Drive. The applicant is North Ranch Country Club.
Thank you. And let's turn to the staff report whenever you're ready, Ms.
Thank you. Vice Chair Pletcher, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. So my name is Kari Finley, and I'm the project planner for this case before you. and I will be presenting this item this evening. The request is for the applicant is requesting to allow outdoor live entertainment events for an existing country club facility, including live bands, disc jockeys, master of ceremony, and individual performers. First, I wanted to note one correction in the staff report on the first page under the request. It indicates that they're requesting 10 live events per year, and that is actually what staff is recommending, but they're just requesting live entertainment events. So the hearing notice and then also the agenda item accurately reflect that they're just requesting to allow scheduled live entertainment events. Okay, the North Ranch Country Club is located at 4761 Valley Spring Road, or Drive, as you can see here on this vicinity map. And there are 3 exterior locations where the country club plans to host live entertainment events near the clubhouse building. These areas include the driving range to the east. You can see this on here. The men's lounge area to the north of the country club building, and then the ceremony patio or main patio to the southeast. The event areas are largely surrounded by the golf course and tennis courts, and then the parking areas with residential development around the perimeter. All properties within 500 feet, as well as 16 homeowners associations and property owners associations in the surrounding area were notified of the application in February 2018. And then also they were notified of the Planning Commission hearing that was originally scheduled in December on the 10th, and that was continued till today. This photo shows an aerial view with a closer shot of the 3 areas where they are proposed for live entertainment. Again, the men's lounge is to the north, the driving range is to the east, and the main patio or ceremony patio is to the southeast. The city's municipal code requires special use permit reviewed by the Planning Commission, subject to the findings listed here on the slide. Within the resolution attached, the staff support of these findings are provided in the resolution. For a closer view, the next 3 slides show the proposed event areas. One exterior area proposed for live entertainment is located on the southeast side of the clubhouse building and sits at the lower grade, surrounded with low brick retaining walls, which assist in reducing noise. This is at the main patio or the ceremony patio. This location, the second location, is the driving range. And this area is located at a lower elevation than the clubhouse, just to the north. And over the past 3 years, the driving range has only been used for 1 live performance per year. And the third area proposed for live entertainment is the men's lounge, which is on the northwest side. Typically, this area is used for acoustic and background type performances. For context, I wanted to provide a little background. In 2016, a noise complaint was filed with the city against the North Ranch Country Club when they hosted a charity event that was held at the driving range with a live band. This permit request is in response to that complaint. City staff has been working with the country club staff to find a way to balance the country club's reasonable use of the property while providing safeguards for the public health and safety and welfare for the surrounding residential properties. For the past 2 years, the country club has been hosting outdoor live entertainment events under special event permits issued administratively by the city and not requiring public notice. The use of special events permits for the outdoor live events was only intended to bridge the time until this special use permit could come before the Planning Commission. There have been no documented calls for police service during these events that were issued under the special event permits over the last 2 years. So here's some considerations for your review. The country club facility and golf course is surrounded by residential development. The distances between the residences and the 3 outdoor areas range from 337 feet. This is to each of those 3 areas, from 337 feet to 560 feet to the nearest residence. There have been in 2017 and 18, there have been just 10 special event requests. Live entertainment ends at 10 p.m. or earlier, and no calls for service were associated with these special event permits or during these special events. To address some of the concerns related to live entertainment and concerns that we've heard from some of the neighbors, several conditions of approval have been suggested to minimize the impacts to the surrounding residents. First is the arrangement of speakers. There are, in the conditions, it requires that they be arranged and face towards the crowd and towards the buildings and away from the residences. They're required to provide 21 days advance notice prior to each event. That includes notification to all properties within 500 feet. They're required to have a club staff member available for complaints during events. The events are required to conclude by 10 p.m. with cleanup to be concluded by 11 p.m. or to be conducted on the following day. They're required to have noise level monitoring on site during events. There are lighting restrictions that include nighttime lighting to be directed downwards and towards the clubhouse and not towards the adjacent residences. And they're also required to notify the performers prior to all the events of all these separate regulations. In addition, there are some other fire department and police department conditions suggested in your packet in the resolution, such as a fire safety plan and security to be available for certain events. As for parking, there are 420 spaces required by the current permit for the country club, and there are 430 existing spaces in the main parking lot. This project qualifies for a Class 1 categorical exemption, which exempts projects that involve negligible or no expansion of use. And given that these events have been occurring over the past years, this wouldn't be a new use or an expansion of the existing, or a significant expansion of the existing use. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the live entertainment permit based on the findings and subject to the conditions included in the resolution, with one revision for clarification to condition number 2. That was provided in your supplemental packet. And what it would read is that we would add the sentence to it. This pertains to the scope of approval. And we'd add the sentence that individual performers includes those performers on a stage as a main attraction using amplified music and not acoustic background music. And that's just to clarify which events would fall under the purview of this permit if your commission chooses to limit it to 10. We wanted to make that clarification. So I'm available for questions, and Senior Deputy Damian Alvarez is also here if you have questions for either one of us.
Thank you very much, Ms. Finley, and good to see you, Deputy Alvarez. Any questions of planning commissioners? Commissioner McMahon.
Thank you. I would assume that the concerts or the events would be mostly in the spring and the summer, which means that the 10 would be in half the year, so it could be 2 or 3 events a month during those months. Was that taken into consideration when you set the 10 limit? Or
So there have been 10 total, and it was kind of a negotiation with country club staff. I think you might hear from them. They may request more. I'm not sure. But there were 10 total over the last 2 years, and last year the 2017 there were 6 events. So we thought that was a reasonable number. It's kind of just given that outdoor events would occur in the warmer, longer day time period, and that was what our rationale was.
mm-hmm. So staff is okay with 2 or 3 a month then, in the warmer months.
Yes, we think that our conditions will mitigate the potential disturbances to the neighbors.
Okay, and then do you know offhand how many properties would be notified? How many are within that 500-foot range?
I'm sorry, I don't know the exact number.
Okay. And is there somebody on staff who would keep track of how many events are being put on, or is it just a matter of if somebody complained to the city?
Excuse me if I may. The applicant would publish a calendar. It has to be a minimum of 21 days prior to each event that would be covered by this item. So that's how we would keep track based on the notices that we receive for that. There is a condition of approval on the project that requires them to notice us of those events, and if they don't, then that constitutes a violation by which we could take a further look and review the permit if it's granted this evening.
Okay, and is the calendar the only notice? Would there be letters sent out to the residences also before each event, or is the one-time calendar it?
At a minimum, it would be the calendar. Just it gives the residents the most notice before the date of the event. Mm-hmm. We can ask the applicant to elaborate if they're willing to send out notices in addition to the calendar that they publish on an annual basis.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
Commissioner Newman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And good evening, Ms. Finley. Thank you for your report.
Welcome.
I want to just clarify a point you made at the top of your presentation about the number of concerts or events per season. As I read the conditions, it explicitly gives a limit of 10. So would that encumber the applicant, if you will, to have a maximum of 10, or would they be able to, per your clarification, are they seeking to have more than 10, or is 10 the limit?
We've had some exchanges. I'm not certain what they're going to ask for to this evening, but I'll let them elaborate on that. We had at one point agreed to 10, and that was a reasonable number, but there were some other parameters that they were concerned about. So I'll let them elaborate if they're requesting more than that or not at this time.
Am I correct in reading the condition as written as
Yes.
limiting to 10? Correct.
Yes, our recommendation is our suggested conditions all include 10.
All right, great.
Yes, a limit of 10.
And then following up on Commissioner McMahon's question about notification, and there are a number of steps to mitigate concert noise, both in the acoustical consultant's report and also in staff report. And my question is, what steps or what measures are in place for city staff for enforcement of those conditions? For example, there's a condition saying loudspeakers have to be distributed. There have to be multiple ones. Is staff sending someone out there to verify that that's been done, or is this just a recommendation?
We are requiring that the applicant perform these mitigation measures. one and comply with the conditions. There is an explicit one that talks about complying with these conditions, and if we have a report and investigate the, for example, they're supposed to keep the records for all the noise monitoring on file, so that if someone complains, we can come and review those records, or they are supposed to produce them so we can review them. And if they don't, they're subject to potentially having additional regulations or even steps towards revocation of the permit.
Okay, so if staff requests records of noise levels or requests an inspection of the site, the applicant would need to provide that.
They would need to comply with that.
Right, okay. Just a clarification on condition 4 is this is just I just want to make sure I'm reading it right. This is the approval period, use inauguration. It says a period of 3 years. I think the intent of that condition is to ensure that this set of rules goes into place starting in the next 3 years. Another way to read it is this permit is in effect for a period of 3 years. I don't think that's the case, but could you just clarify?
Yes, that is a standard condition that we put in most permits that allows them a time period to, for example, if they're developing something or finishing construction with something, they have 3 years to initiate that or inaugurate the use. In this case, it's an ongoing use, so unless they don't have any live entertainment events for the next 3 years, then that's how that would apply.
So as long as the applicant is in good standing with the conditions, they could keep using this permit for a much longer period. They wouldn't need to renew every 3 years. That's not the intent.
That's not the intent.
Great.
You're correct.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Condition 25 on page 7 prohibits extension cords, which I found odd because I've been around bands and DJs and know that they're pretty heavy consumers of extension cords. So I'm wondering, number one, what this is condition 25 on page 7. I'm wondering two questions here. One, what is the power source if it's not via an extension cord? And two, is there an exemption or an exception for using power cords or extension cords within the stage area?
My understanding of that condition, it came from the fire department, obviously, is it looks like it's intended to require a surge protector and not just the extension cord by itself.
Okay, so the power source may be some distance away, and I'll follow up with the applicant as well, but the power source may be some distance away. It just needs to be properly surge protected, but it's
Yes.
okay to run a cable.
That's my interpretation of that condition.
Okay,
Yes.
because it does say explicitly extension cords are not permitted. I just wanted to find out what that prohibition was about.
No, I'm pretty certain it means it needs to be plugged into the surge protector, not just the cord into the wall.
Okay.
If you want to clarify the language, we can do that.
Okay.
And have it clarified. So, if that's not the intent, we can bring it back. But you obviously have to have electrical
I'm not requesting
cords.
a change. I was really trying to understand more the scope of the prohibition of extension cords.
Well, I think that, as you stated, they're necessary. They just
They're
need to be
very
plugged
heavily
into a
used
surge
in
protector.
music performance. So.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. This is just a minor wording nit, and maybe a question for Senior Deputy Alvarez. The fire department conditions all refer to the applicant, and the sheriff's there's only one condition, so A+ for brevity, but it refers to the establishment, and I would suggest a change for consistency with it, so that both fire and sheriff are using the same terminology, to say applicant rather than establishment. and then also because not every applicant will be a establishment. So as long as that's okay with you, senior deputy.
Yes, Commissioner Newman, that's correct.
Great, thanks. And then the final thing I've got is just a question on the timing of events here. A lot of the letters in attachment 6 appear to be about a year old or more so. Was the intervening interval was because the applicant was preparing noise reports or is in discussion with the city? I just noticed that almost all the neighbors' letters date from some time ago.
Yes, the immediate response was to the notice of application, which is the first notice that goes out as soon as we receive it. And then there's usually an intervening time period where we're engaged in discussions and negotiations with the applicant over different conditions and different requirements. And in addition, they did have noise studies and then addendum also conducted, and that takes some time.
Did the city receive any additional complaints or see a reduction in complaints perhaps during the period from initial notice till now?
I think they just submitted their initial ones and we haven't received any additional complaints. I've had some discussions with a couple of neighbors and a homeowners association, but no new correspondence was received.
Great. Thanks very much, Ms. Finley.
Right.
Mr. Vice Chair, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman. Commissioner Lanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Ms. Finley, for the report. A few just clarification questions. The 10 events per year, we've been talking about that issue. Is it where they get a maximum of that and no more, or can they apply for a case-by-case permit after the 10 are used up?
That's a good question. But in this case, we wanted to bring the live entertainment events into all under these same regulations. And so we wanted to have a specific definitive number. We feel like this is a better way to monitor and control and have some regulations over these events if there should be disturbances. I wouldn't allow them. I don't have any provisions in these conditions to allow them to request additional events in a 1-year period, unless they did a modification to the permit, requested a modification of the permit.
Okay, so they would have to seek that modification to the extent they wanted something above and beyond that based on your recommendation.
Yes.
Right, okay. Second, just point of clarification, I wanted to see if there was any discussion with regard to the concert if it were held on the driving range. Was there any discussion as to which way the concert would face, whether it was the building or the driving range?
Yes, it's my understanding. There would be a stage, or typically there's a stage set up there, and then the speakers conditions require that the speakers be directed down and towards the crowd and towards the building and away from the residential areas.
Okay. We'll ask the applicant. I just want to make sure that's an important issue in terms of exactly which way the sound would be going. Next is parking. I understand the parking numbers make sense from a permit standpoint. To the extent there is an overflow of parking, was there any discussion as to where those cars would go?
I think in one event they did have overflow parking at the one big event where that brought this to our attention. And they had shuttles, but I'm going to defer that to them and let them respond to that.
There's a long street that goes into the club. Do you have any knowledge if there's availability to put parking on that street? I'm hearing a no from the crowd.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't see cars there.
It is a driveway, but I believe that's for fire access. So it would need to be unimpeded up to the minimum requirements that fire department would require.
And the other related question is there would be any parking availability on the streets outside of the complex in the neighborhood? I'll ask the applicant that.
Yes.
I'll save the rest of my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lanson. Just a couple questions for me. I just wanted to go back to the notification period. You had mentioned, it's been discussed, there was and is going to be a calendar of events, but then in the staff report on page 5, it mentions a 21-day advance notification of live entertainment events. Is that one and the same, or is that a separate notification going to neighbors about the upcoming event, plus there's a annual calendar going around? I just wanted to get clarification on that. It's towards the bottom of, it'd be page 3 of the staff report 5 on my packet.
So that's referring to condition number 6?
Yes.
And it states the applicant shall provide a 21-day minimum notification of upcoming outdoor events, subject to this permit, to inform residents within 500 feet from the outside event area. So as Mr. Parker stated, the minimum would be the calendar of events, and that if it's at least 21 days in advance, that would give more than 21 days notice. If the applicant wanted to provide additional notice, or if there's a change to that calendar, I would think that we would require that would be a requirement for an additional notice.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure they're one and the same. How do we land on 500 feet? Is that just a standard operating practice of the city, or is that something specific to North Ranch?
Yes, that's the city's standard notification for public hearings and notice of application. It's in the municipal code.
Thank you. And just for clarification then on the scope of, because I know we probably have some neighbors in North Ranch listening and watching, clarification on the permit, live entertainment, it says on our staff report, live entertainment consisting of live bands, disc jockey, master of ceremony, individual performers. Is this really just all live performances outside of the country club building?
Yes.
Okay.
If I may, Chair, Vice Chair, and for the public as well, in the supplemental packet we had the scope of the permit approval, and we do distinguish individual performers, include those performers on a stage as a main attraction using amplified music, not acoustic background music. So we're not counting the individuals, let's say a string quartet or something like that, that might be at a string quartet that might be at an event or something that's acoustic only. We're looking for specific events that are going to be amplified music at one of those 3 stages.
Okay. Thank you, Assistant Attorney Heher. Just a question on page 4 of the staff report, just for, again, clarification. I know in attachment 4, the Acoustic Group Inc. did a noise study and really landed on the 60, I'll just call it dBA, for sake of everybody knowing what we're talking about. Is that just something that was done through the research and report done by the Acoustic Group, that 60 dBA just seems like the best amplification for this particular permit, and what events would come outside of North Ranch?
The 60 dBA guideline or standard is actually something that is represented in the city's noise element as being an acceptable sound level for residential areas.
Okay, thank you. And that's all the questions I have. And Commissioner McMahon.
Thank you. I have one more question, and I don't know if I should ask you or if I should ask the applicant. One of those areas, the outdoor patio, I understand is used for weddings. And at a lot of weddings, they have DJs, they have live music. Would those, if they have weddings that go till 10, would those be part of the 10 events that we're talking about here?
As long as the outdoor live entertainment is conducted out there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McMahon. And any other questions before we move on to the applicants? Okay. Moving on to the applicants, Jenny Deuce, sorry. You have 15 minutes. And I know we have a number of individuals for questions only, which I will defer to the applicants and any of the commissioners if they have any questions of any of these other individuals. Ms. Deuce, please.
Got it. All right. Is that better?
I'm sorry about
That's
that.
okay.
It was hiding behind all these notes up here.
So good evening, Planning Commissioners, and thank you for your time. My name is Jenny Deuce. I'm the General Manager here at North Ranch Country Club. Just a little quick background about the club. It was established in the mid-'70s by Prudential, who began developing homes around the club. The members purchased from Prudential in 1990. They purchased the club, and it became a nonprofit equity country club at that time. It has been and still remains a neighborhood club. Our golf equity membership numbers are capped at 600, and we employ approximately 150 employees. The majority of our members travel less than 5 miles to use the club, and many reside less than a mile away and in many of the neighboring HOAs that we're speaking about today. The mission of the club is to create a unique and exceptional environment for our members and their families to discover and experience. The club has 27 holes of golf, 12 tennis courts, and a dining and social atmosphere for our members and families to enjoy. Over the 40-plus years, the club has traditionally held year-round events, some having live and amplified music for our members and families. We've held an array of events with DJs and live bands. Some of the events have music, such as our family back-to-school night, our concert on the driving range, and light dining atmosphere music on Friday and Saturday evenings. Previously, we haven't had many issues, but with the outside St. Jude event concert a few years ago, which was extremely loud, we all learned that North Ranch didn't have a live music permit. So we're here today to request this permit to continue having events that we've had for our members and community for years, not the ability to repeat the loud St. Jude event that we had a couple years ago. In order to try to learn a little bit more about the sound production, we engaged an acoustical engineer and provided testing to monitor sound at specific locations around our property and to recommend the direction of the sound so we can be least impactful. We are prepared to follow and comply with the staff report and recommendation set forth, minus the extension cords with the surge protector. We understand the impact and benefits our club has on our neighbors, many who are members, but not all. We have implemented strategies to increase communication with surrounding neighbors within a mile of the club. So the recommendation was to send out letters within 500 feet. We have gone the extra mile, went to a mile, and we send out 498 letters. We fully anticipate continue doing that. We will limit the setup and breakdown time frame if it impacts the time frame set forth in the plan. And again, we're requesting the ability to run our normal country club events for the enjoyment of our members, as we've done for many years, without having to obtain the single music permits every time we have an event. So in this, here, Ari, is this live? So we went over a lot of this already. And obviously, due to the St. Jude concert, that's why we're standing here today. But we do a lot of live events. Many are not with amplified sound. So a lot of the ones that we have on Friday or Saturday night are just two guys and a guitar standing out there on the patio, and it's dinner music. The ceremony patio that you mentioned, Commissioner McMahon, is oftentimes there's just ceremonies out there. We don't have the full-on receptions, so you're not going to have the bands that's held inside. Let's see. So those are the sites. The main one that we were trying to work with that has probably the most reach for the sound is the concert on the driving range. And so that's the one that's really going to be our annual event. And if we send out the calendar at the beginning of the year, sometimes we don't have that date picked out because we don't have our talent picked out. So we will send a subsequent letter letting everyone know this is the date, this is when we plan on doing it, and we'll do it within 21 days as well. The other music that you're going to hear on the ceremony patio, such as Back to School Night, is just a DJ. And essentially there's tables sitting right up in front of the DJ. So it's not that loud, and you wouldn't be able to sit there and listen and have a nice conversation. So as well as the men's patio. So really the impactful one is likely the driving range. Got it? Oh, okay. So the good neighbor efforts.
To turn it on.
You
need to click the side of it.
Got it.
On.
We went to sleep.
And then point it this direction.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
We have been sending out calendar of events, and like I said, if we have any changes, we will comply and send out letters to the homeowners and HOAs within 21 days of that. We have extended front desk hours, so we will have a staff person, and on the letter that we send out to the homeowners, we'll have the number for anyone who is having a concern with the noise to call, and that's on site. So we'll try to mitigate it on site first if that's the case. And so yes, I know that there's some people that have had some challenges with the noise, but we've had a lot of positive feedback as well. So many neighbors have called and said, thank you for letting us know. We appreciate it. And we've also requested and asked if any of the HOAs would like us to come speak to at any of their meetings, and offered to do that as well. So that's all I have for our site. I have our acoustical engineer here if you have any specific questions regarding sound.
Commissioners, is there any questions for the speaker? Commissioner Newman.
Good evening, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
You just characterized the 2016 concert, the St. Jude's concert, as being, quote, extremely loud. And in the letters that you've sent out to various HOAs and neighbors, you said, or NRCC said, quote, we understand it was very loud. Is it a fair inference from those statements that that concert was exceptional, and that the noise level was exceptional, that other concerts typically have a lower noise level?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then the only other, this is a comment rather than a question. I think it's directed really to your acoustical engineer.
Okay.
Good evening. I have a quibble with your definition of pink noise. The definition of pink noise here is not correct. This is on page 7
Ma'am?
of attachment 4.
Oh,
Hello?
perfect.
There?
Yes, please.
And I should be clear that what I'm saying here has nothing to do with NRCC or doesn't invalidate your report, or which seems fine. This is just a terminology question I had
Of course.
in reading this.
I actually don't have
Okay, well,
what you're
I
looking
can
at.
read it. It's one
Okay.
line. The page with the pink noise charts states underneath the charts that pink noise represents equal sound energy across the frequency spectrum from 20 to 20,000 hertz. That's actually not correct. That is the definition for white noise, where there is equal sound energy. The
Okay.
definition for pink noise is per octave, and you
Yes.
can define an octave from 20 to 20,000. That's fine.
Yes.
But I've never seen a good wording definition for pink noise, but it uses a log function.
Yes.
And it suppresses higher frequencies relative to lower ones.
The
And
way
that's not reflected in this definition.
the reason for using the pink noise was for us to establish a delta for what the source level is at the country club, and so we can calculate that delta between the different residences. So it is not representative of what someone would be hearing during these events, but that's just me. So we can show you that
I'm
delta.
not quibbling with the
And
metric
that,
is,
we can-
the
yes.
right metric.
Okay.
I agree with your choice of
Yeah.
pink noise rather than white
Yes.
noise. I'm quibbling with the definition that's
And
given here.
if you would like, we can make an amendment to our report.
Yeah, I think it should say that it's well, as I say, I haven't seen a good wording definition for it, and I'm not an acoustical engineer, but I know that pink noise and white noise are different. I know that pink noise uses a log function, which white noise does not. It's the same energy level across any spectrum, and that's what this definition says pink noise is, and that's not true.
Okay.
So that was
I
just
will take a
quibble.
note of that.
Okay. All right. As long as we're clear on what metric, but I applaud your use of pink noise. It's the right metric to use here. I just want to be sure we're describing it correctly.
Of course.
Great. And again, to the applicant, this has no bearing on. I think the study is fine and it describes the sound architecture adequately. So thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman. Commissioner Lanson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Ms. Deuce, thank you for your presentation. I want to make sure I kind of clarify some of the issues going forward. We've been talking about 10 events. Staff had recommended that as a maximum number. Are you okay with that?
We are okay with that for now. We had six events in 2017. We had 5 in 2018. We don't anticipate having many more. As long as with the addendum that was provided, not amplified sound doesn't count. So if someone's standing out there with a guitar, we, aren't counting that. They're not amplifying the sound.
Okay, so as long as you realize that to the extent that it's more than 10, it isn't just a question of a case-by-case basis, you'd have to go back and modify.
Sure. Would it be better to, if we get to that point and request additional, if we were to go over 10?
Again, that's not before us necessarily, but again, my understanding is the staff recommendation is to maximize it as 10. Then if you want to change it later on, then it would be something you'd have to go modify. Mr. Heher, would you concur with that?
That would be correct. So what Mr. Lanson is asking you is that staff's recommendation is 10. As you noted, we did do the modification to the condition number 2 just to ensure that it didn't apply to non-amplified sound, acoustic sound.
Could we request 12?
It's your right to, as applicant, to request that amount. I think what Mr. Lanson is saying correctly is that because this is a SUP, if you were to make a change, we want to avoid having what we were doing the last 2 years, which we did on a temporary basis, and that was to have every time you had an event, we had a specific request for each one, and we're trying to let's fix that with a clear conditional type of use that we're going to be aware of. So I think he was asking you if you're okay with 10, he needed to hear that, and if you want more, you can ask for more, and understand that the commissioners can make decisions based on what they think is appropriate.
Okay.
And just with that, he's also just saying that because it's the SUP, if you were to all of a sudden say, hey, we want 20 more or whatever the number would be, it'd be something we'd have to consider coming back with a modification to the SUP, which is a process that we'd have to go through.
Okay.
That's what I was saying.
I got it. I think we'd like to request 12 and have that be the maximum, understanding the process.
How many of those, whatever you would request, would be the driving range version of the concert?
Maybe one. There's one for sure, maybe 2 at the most. The rest would be smaller events with a DJ for families, for back-to-school nights, for, Halloween, a dinner party, something like that, but not the driving range one. We are sensitive to the impact of that one.
Let me just ask from a documentation standpoint, how would you note somewhere in your system if you had, say, an event that was one of these events, would you note it someplace that
Sure.
we actually could verify that you actually were keeping track of how many events?
Yep. Well, we can put it on the calendar 100%, and then we can make sure that the neighbors are well aware of the location of those.
again, I know I'm asking for a difficult speculation, maybe to some extent, but how many people do you believe would show up to the, again, driving range concert?
Well, it's members only. So, I mean, all of our events are open to members and their guests. So it's not open to the public. Parking isn't an issue. We have a cap number of members we can have. So I think our last one maybe had 300, 350, possibly, all mostly members and their guests.
So you said in something I want to make sure I'm clear on. So you say parking's not an issue. The parking lot as currently constituted was able to handle all of the cars that came to the event?
Yes.
And has there ever been a time where actually that was not the case, that you needed shuttles or something else?
Only the St. Jude event.
Okay.
Yeah.
The poor event is actually being
Yeah.
the source of all this stuff. With regard to the direction of the concert, I don't know if you heard me before, is that would the concert, again, on the driving range, would it face the building?
That was the recommendation. We have faced it both ways since I've been there. And after when the St. Jude actually went through the process with the city had recommended facing towards the building, as well as did our acoustical engineer. So we've been doing that the last 2 years. We've faced towards the building and sound down. So the stage basically flipped it around from what we had done previously. So we will go at what's recommended. But that seemed to be the direction that the city was leaning for St. Jude's event, as well as the acoustical engineer was leaning towards that.
And would you have any problem then having that being part of this process where that condition would be?
No, that's fine.
Okay. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Commissioner Lanson. Commissioner McMahon.
Okay, thank you very much. Your presentation was very, very good. So now we're talking 12. If we were to go with 12, would you be okay if we said 2 of those 12 were the maximum on the driving range, and the other 10 would be elsewhere?
Yes.
Would that be okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, just thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McMahon. My question certainly is very similar. I know 10 was the number that the city put on, just in terms of the recommendation. Do you have a basis for the reason that you'd want to ask for 12 versus 10? I mean, just looking at your last couple of years, we're not anywhere close to 10. Do you have anticipation of events in the future that you would need 12 versus 10?
There's some that we've moved inside versus outside, and being in Southern California with as much sunshine that we have, as we try to incorporate more family events and add experiences for our members, it's helpful to have the flexibility to be able to have maybe a DJ. Again, we're not talking concerts; we're talking another dinner party outside on the patio that would have amplified music, but not to the extent of the driving range concert. That's not what I'm requesting. I'm requesting just the ability to have some outside live functions that are enjoyable for our members.
And is this the process of getting a permit? Is this anybody off the street can come to you guys and say, I want to have an event and permit at North Ranch, or is this limited to members, or is this?
Outside events need to be sponsored by a member, or they have to know a member to be able to have a function there. So it's not really anyone off the street can come in and have an event. And again, everything is monitored, and we control if we do have an outside event that is sponsored by a member, we have conversations with the DJs and note the sound and all that as well. So.
And is there, I mean, we're talking all sizes, I guess, of events. A member could come and say, I want to do a outside dinner party for 25 and we're going to have a DJ, and that would be fine. And then there's events like this St. Jude's event. I mean, there's all different sizes of
Sure.
events is what you guys need to anticipate. Is that right?
That's right. But we know the DBA parameters that are now set forth in terms of sound. So we will adhere to those.
Okay. And then if we move to 12, is it going to be made very clear to your members, just in terms of the 21-day advance notification that you guys need to go through, just the process so that you don't have somebody a week before, let's say Halloween, call you up and say, hey, is the patio booked? Can I have an outdoor Halloween event? I mean, you're going to really firmly establish the process that these members and anybody who wants an event to go through.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And just on you had mentioned the different HOAs that are in North Ranch. Help me understand how many different HOAs are in North Ranch. And I thought, I think the majority of thinking is it's North Ranch, it's one HOA. Is that not true?
There's like 8 of them that surround the golf course. Yeah, so there's quite a few.
And is there, if I'm somebody purchasing a home in North Ranch, am I notified that a country club and you guys am I notified as to the events and the noise if I purchase a home there? Does that come with, I guess my thought process is if I'm purchasing a home, am I notified that there could be events at the country club and it could be noise, it could be impactful?
We'll try to sell them a membership and we can send them the calendar. I mean, so certainly we will reach out to them. We do have a relationship with realtors and HOAs to try to, get that information. A lot of people buy a house right there so they can join the club.
Okay. All pink noise aside, I don't have any other questions. Any other questions of commissioners before we move on to the public questions? Okay, very good.
Thank you.
You'll have an opportunity to come up after public comment and to offer a reply in response to anything else that's discussed. Moving on to public comments, we will start with Mr. Mike Tingus, and followed by Ashley McCoy. Oh, I apologize. Followed by Jane Reeder. So Mike Tingus, followed by Jane Reeder, and you will have 5 minutes. Mr. Tingus?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mike Tingus. Good evening, commissioners. I'm vice president of North Ranch Country Club. I'm also a resident. I live about 600 feet from the driving range. A couple of my neighbors are here this evening. I'm supportive of the music permit, really for a myriad of reasons. Obviously, we can enjoy the music when it's out there. The concert in the driving range. I mean, poor Scotty Medlock and Robbie Krieger. They had the best intentions when they wanted to move their concert from Moore Park here to be closer to a lot of the entertainment and a lot of the more money to raise for St. Jude's Hospital. And that just ended up being something we weren't prepared for, they weren't prepared for, and ended up, creating this issue. I just got this handed to me earlier today. This is a Westlake update. It says, headlines, Westlake North Ranch Golf Course will be open for play on July 1st. 1975. This is 1975. This was released. I was reading through there talking about the golf course. There was no homes, no lots. The lots were just getting graded out there. And if you're going to live near a golf course, obviously there's going to be balls hitting your house, balls hitting tennis. People playing tennis, whether people are swimming, playing music. It's part of that country club environment that you're trying to create. And, we not only obviously provide services for our own, members, but we do a lot for the community. We have Boys and Girls Club up there all the time. We have the Police Foundation. We hold a lot of different charity events. We just recently had the Rams. It was kind of a last-minute thing. There was no music, but the Rams came we did a Make-A-Wish Foundation actually out on the driving range with no music. So, we're here not just obviously for ourselves and to provide services for our members, but also for the community. I know Jenny didn't mention this, but I think was it our Easter event that we have how many people? 800 or 900 that show up for that day event. So they're families and friends and neighbors of people throughout the community. So we hope that you'll support, I think the 12 events. I was just figuring that you have April, May, June, July, August, September. It's 6 months of good weather and 2 events a month, which is usually more than we ever have of any type of event. I think it just gives us that latitude so we don't have to come back to you at a later date and say, we need 1 more event this year or 2 more events, in some year. And And I think, we have been doing a good job. Jenny's taking the bull by the horns. We've sent out notifications for all of our events, from a mile, not just 500 feet. 500 feet only catches myself and a handful of other neighbors. Around maybe 20 people are within 500 feet. And the other thing, too, that we're cognizant of is that the weather plays a big factor in where the noise goes. When the Santa Anas are blowing, it's coming back towards my house and towards my neighbors' homes. When the wind's coming off of the ocean, it's going out kind of the driving range, and it impacts, less people, but there's still people on the other side. So, if we have no wind, that's ideal. But it's not a perfect world, but we're trying to be very, very good neighbors. And as I said, I think it would be great if we could get this approved. We haven't had, it's been 43 years. We've never had to have a music permit. I think we've been good neighbors, and we hope that you'll support us with the additional request of 12. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Jane Reeder, please.
Hi, thank you for having. Can you hear me? Or am I doing something wrong? My name is Jane, and I live in Thousand Oaks, obviously, and I'm the closest neighbor to the club at about 337 feet, according to the report. We live literally up above the club, kind of perched out on a point, if you will, so a noise travels up. And for 21 years, the club has been a great neighbor. We built our house, and we selected that lot. We had lots in Country Club Estates, sold those. We bought this one, and we thought we're living above this beautiful, prestigious golf and tennis club. And it was a wonderful neighbor for 21 years, and it's slowly morphing into this kind of party venue where we've had hot air balloons, literally full-blown size hot air balloon with the rumbling of the whatever gas or whatever they use. And that was a little startling because we weren't aware that that was going to be happening, on the property there. And you could see it full blown right from our entire property, our bedroom, the backyard. There's been a Ferris wheel, and then, of course, the noise level. And most of it is fine. It's pleasant. But there are times, even on that outdoor men's patio or whatever they're calling it, where on Friday and Saturday nights there's usually a gal singer and maybe a couple guys or something, where when we've been entertaining in our backyard, it's competing because that noise is traveling up. So we move our party inside. And years ago, I would call the club and say, can I have a list in advance for the spring and summer months? And I don't remember, forgive me, I don't remember the gal's name. Somebody was very nice, and they left it, a little handwritten thing, in my mailbox. And then I could plan accordingly when I was going to host something in my backyard. So we're not for it or against it. We're just neutral. We're just wanting the city to take into consideration that there have been occasions where there was a wedding in 2016, and it escalated into what sounded like a domestic situation in the parking lot, literally below our bedroom. It became slightly intimidating for us just to sit and listen to two men and a woman. We couldn't reach anybody at the club, so we had to resort to calling the sheriff. The sheriff did come out, and they were able to diffuse the situation. And then one night, I think it might have been 2016, and my husband will probably correct me, but where they were dismantling a stage or maybe some party tents. And at about 2:30 in the morning, and I'm, working, so I get up, and my commute at the time was Escondido. So I was leaving at like 5:30 in the morning. And they were dropping what sounded like aluminum poles on the cement or the asphalt. So Mike got dressed and went down and just asked very nicely, do you mind, can you be a little more cognizant that there's neighbors here, we're trying to sleep? And he was told to F off. And he couldn't reach anybody at the club, so we resorted to calling the sheriff again, and the sheriff came out and was able to kind of, get rid of the situation for us. So we're just asking that we have our concerns, and we don't want this to morph into more than what we bought a vacant lot, built a beautiful home, love to entertain in our backyard. And we bought it when it was a tennis and golf club, not a big party venue where you've got floodlights and people lingering until 11 o'clock on that back patio. And one of my neighbors said it's because the young members are becoming a little bit younger and they're reaching out to more, try to get more members. And now people are sitting out on that patio sometimes until 11 or 11:30. I know I can hear the conversations as clear as a bell if I stand right in my backyard, right outside my master bedroom. So we're just asking that if they're going to have all of these events, that they have some security present so that if anything does escalate, because there's always alcohol at these events, things can get out of hand, and that's our concern as a neighbor. We've had issues with break-ins in the cars in the parking lot, the locker room in the parking lot. We live literally up above that. Somebody could scurry up the hill, and we're just asking the club to be considerate of the surrounding neighbors with security, making sure that if they're breaking the venue down at 10 o'clock, that they're done by 11. I mean, if we're getting up the next day to go to work, my career is working on weekends. My days off are during the week. That's the industry I'm in. So on a Friday and Saturday night, if I'm having to listen to things till 2, 3 in the morning because they're rummaging down in the parking lot, we've never been able to really reach somebody until recently, when I was able to speak to somebody at the tennis club. I think her name was Vicky. She picked up the phone, and I was able to say, what is this thumping noise that you guys have never had on your courts before? At till 8 o'clock, 8:30 at night. So we're just asking that they take some measures to make sure that they're communicating with all of us when the events are going to happen, what are the hours of the events, so we can plan our lives and our entertainment schedules as well. Just like they love the weather and they want to have outside parties, we do too. So, and that mostly that we have security, that they have some sort of security on site and a number that we can all reach in the event that we need to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Michael Reeder, followed by Kathy, I think, Schultz.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, staff. My name is Michael Reeder, and I reside in the city of Thousand Oaks. And like my wife, I'm neither for or against the issue of this permit. I'd just like to get some things straight, but after reading the staff report and the 25 attachment pages, it's tough to understand all this. So I'd like to clarify some things tonight with you, Commissioners, to make sure I have a good understanding of what you are going to approve or not going to approve. So if we could start on page 1 of the staff report under the heading of request. It's obvious that the request is for 10 scheduled live entertainment events each year. Well, that's simple, but the report fails to specify as to how these events are timed, and Commissioner McMahon alluded to this. Looking at page 2 of the staff report, we see that the schedule of events at the club had in 2017 and 2018 that the concerts would start the first week in June and end they would start the last week in June and end the first week of September. Well, this is approximately 10 weekends in. And of course, we're asking for 10 events. So if it continues like this, we'd have a live event every single weekend during the summer. Reading further on the request, it goes on to describe, as it's been mentioned before, that the live entertainment will include bands and disc jockeys, master of ceremonies, and individual performers. Well, we all know disc jockeys. They're hired to get everyone revved up. And even though maybe the sound isn't real great, it's not all that fun to listen with if you're not actively participating. So that disturbs the evening a bit for us living close to the club. Commissioners, you also need to know that during the warm months of the year, the club hosts cocktail parties almost every Friday night. And it's been described as having background music, but it is amplified. If you look at the concerts, the sound comes so far that you don't really take a conversation with a friend in the backyard. But with the background music, you can't play your own music because it's loud enough to compete with that. So even with those Friday nights, it's like we don't have anybody over because the club is doing that. So it's like having a neighbor that plays a loud stereo. In addition, private weddings have been mentioned, birthdays, bar mitzvahs. All these things are in addition to the 10 events that are being asked for. So those are, again, things that kind of disrupt the flow of a neighborhood. If these minor events, are they included under the term of scheduled events? Because they are scheduled. Someone has to know a birthday's coming up or a wedding. If they are not, it's possible that not only do we have a live event every weekend during the summer, but also on the Friday evenings or Sundays or whenever. So I hope you agree that it'd be untenable for the neighborhood or the valley there to have music playing every single weekend. The days of the week that an outdoor event are permitted is not defined. So we're assuming that they're going to be on the weekend, but I think a specification should be made that on what days the permit is actually going to be valid. In the past, there were 2 Sunday nights where they had an event in 2017 and in 2018 on a Monday night. And I think the city would agree that on a work night, to wrap everything up by 11 o'clock, that's a little late. In summary, please specify what days of the week live amplified outdoor events can be produced, how many events are permitted each month. I think this is very important, rather than how many events per year. And ascertain if all amplified outdoor events should be addressed by this permit. On page 3 of the staff report, under the evaluation heading, the report describes the same venues that are mentioned in the initial request. However, an additional phrase has been added. The new phrase is, and other scheduled special activities. What does this mean? Why was it added? As my wife said, we've had Ferris wheels below us in the parking lot, 70-foot hot air balloons with the noise of the burners going. We had no idea this was going to happen. So I would like to know what other special scheduled event activities would be.
Mr. Reeder?
Yep.
You're out of your 5 minutes. If you could just wrap up your comments,
sure.
Please.
Okay. I was just going to say on conditions 15 and 16 that I agree with staff is recommending, and especially that the recommendation that the sound level readings of each live entertainment event be recorded and made available to the police in the city of Thousand Oaks. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Lanson?
Mr. Reeder, I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Kind of two-part. Are you a member of the club? And if not, is there any way you get notice of what events might be taking place at the club?
I am not a member of the club. And we do get the annual calendar. But other than that, we don't get notices. And if notices were to be sent, it would be great to have that 21-day notice sent prior to every single event, because calendars get lost.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have one question. I apologize. You keep back and forth. You had mentioned the cocktail parties on Friday nights. Are they outdoor on the patio?
They're outdoor on the patio, yes.
And then there's amplified music on the patio?
Yes.
Can you describe is it just background classical? What is it? The same music every week?
It's usually singers accompanied with a light background. And it was alluded to as background music. Obviously, they're not so loud that the people having cocktails can't communicate with each other. But it is loud enough to where the presence is very well known, and we've just come to get used to it every Friday night.
And how many of these events is there for these weddings? Is there a hot air balloon and Ferris wheels? And is it just kind of once a year out of the ordinary you see something like that happen?
Yeah, it's an unusual thing, but it would be nice to be notified of these things because they're special, and they're not horrible events. I mean, the balloon was beautiful, but it was just like if we were having something in our backyard at that time, boy, what a distraction that would be.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? And our last speaker is Kathy Schutz. I think I got your name right the second time. Sorry about that. I'll get these names down eventually.
It's hard to do.
Whenever you're ready, ma'am, you'll have 5 minutes. Please state your name and your city of residence, please.
Okay, my name is Kathy Schutz. I live in Thousand Oaks, and I'm the president of the Westlake North Property Owners Association. And I'm also not here to quibble about how many events the North Ranch Country Club has. I just have a concern because the people that live closest to the club were not notified, according to your notification that you sent out. You listed the associations that were notified as Tiffany Homes, Country Club Estates, and North Ranch POA. Not notified is Clubview Estates, which is directly to the west of the club. And there's about 75 or 100 condominiums in that complex. And they were not notified of this hearing tonight. And Westlake Ranch was also not notified. Westlake Ranch, Mr. Reeder lives on one side of Kingsborough, and I could show you with a map if you need to see it, but he lives on one side of Kingsborough, and that is in my association. But the other side of the street from him and on down Lakeview Canyon, that it parallels, goes with the golf course, that is Westlake Ranch. It's a different association. They are not listed either. So I think it's really important that, I know you guys have talked about, you've notified people within so many feet and what have you, but I really think it's important for the community to know what's going on right there by their associations, very close by. We try to do that in our association, so I just think it would be fair if we could get them on the list for another time. My association, Westlake North, did not get notified. The last notification we received of anything going on was a notice of application February 1st, 2018. So we really were not notified either. I had found out about this hearing because some of the neighbors had called me and asked me about it, and I said I would look into it. And so I just wanted to let you know that notification is important, and we all kind of depend on that. One of the other quick things I wanted to mention was on page 5, it states there, on page 1, item number 5, it states the commission may grant a permit if, and then number 5 says, the use is compatible with uses in the vicinity. Well, what you guys are talking about, there's nothing like that in the vicinity. I mean, it's all residential. There's no clubs or dance places or restaurants or anything like that. So the country club itself is great. I mean, people love it, and I'm not a member, but I've been up there a number of times. So, but I don't think there's anything that's compatible in the vicinity. Also, staff received, I think, 8 letters, 4 in favor and 4 were not in favor. And one individual wrote me, because I was reaching out to talk to some folks from other associations, and he said he moved to Clubview Estates in 1997 because it was quiet and there was no possibility of new development in the area. And he said the proposed change, and this was, I don't know when he sent it, I think it was over a year ago, threatens the peace and quiet of the neighborhood. And so people are concerned, and I think you guys gave a really good presentation, and I understand that they're going to be the North Ranch Country Club is going to be very considerate of the neighbors and is trying to work things out. So I'm not complaining about that, but I just wanted you to know about the notifications. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And with no more public speakers, we go back to city staff for any comments, follow-ups, and discussion. Ms. Finley.
Thank you. Yes, I have a couple of comments. Just to respond. I believe, in your conditions, there is one that talks about the security. It is condition. That's the very last one in your resolution. Number 38, that talks about security. We have also included events notification requirements, which was one of the comments from Mrs. Reeder. And then also, we have not identified or defined the days of the weeks, or they're indicating that 11 p.m. is too late. Those are things that you can consider and you could add if you choose to. But 10 p.m. is the curfew for noise events for the city. Let's see. And then regarding noticing, I have the list of all the property owners, and I indicated that in the staff report as well, that we had notified for both the notice of application in February and then again for the public hearing notice in last December, for December 10th. I confirmed that from our list, it's part of our record, that we notified 15 different homeowners and property owners associations. And I do see Westlake North Ranch Property Owners Association and the Clubview Properties Homeowners Association and Club Estates POA. The list goes on, and then also everyone within 500 feet, and that's the city's standard notification. And I think that the North Ranch staff has also indicated that they provided additional notification of what their request was as well. So if you have any questions about that, I do have a complete list of who they were mailed to. If there's any questions about that. If they didn't receive it, I'm not sure what happened there.
Any questions for staff? Then we go back to the applicant for rebuttal, and you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you again, Jenny Deuce, North Ranch Country Club. Just for a couple clarification of some points, the event speaking about the hot air balloon and Ferris wheel, that is the back to school night, and they were listed on the events because we did have a DJ, so all of that was included. Not necessarily that we were going to have a Ferris wheel in the parking lot, but that we would have live music. And so, pertaining to live music, which I think this permits for, that was included on the letter, as well as on the letter is the number of the front desk, in case anyone has any questions about sound or whatnot. That is who they should contact. We do have security on property, 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. every night. So we do have a number that they can be reached at, which we can certainly include on the letter as well, that goes out to all of the homeowners that we are sending our information to. The club is also looking at getting a guard gate, and so we are exposed in terms of people driving in and out of our parking lot at multiple times of night. So we are in the works of developing that as well. And to speak in regards to the 337 feet, so item or point number 7 that was used on the sound basically sound spot. That is actually not located at the property line. It was located at the tennis shop stop sign. So it's about 100, 150 feet away from the property line of Mr. and Mrs. Reeder. So it was well away from that. So if we were to, we couldn't put the sound system up on the hill. It wouldn't have stayed. So we had to kind of find a flat spot closer to measure the sound from. So thank you, and thank you again. We hope you consider approving this for us, as we really, certainly want to keep the live entertainment going for the enjoyment of our members, but also are cognizant of our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have one question from Mr. Lanson, Commissioner Lanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Assistant Chair. Ms. Dews, just to follow up on some of those issues, are these events held usually on the weekends?
They are typically held on a Sunday afternoon. So the back to school night is the Sunday before kids go back to school. And it's typically, I want to say it starts at 4:30, something like that, and goes till 7:30.
What about the driving range concert?
That one is on a Friday or Saturday? Friday night.
So would you say most of the things that you would be doing under this permit would be on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday?
Most of the time. Every now and then a golf tournament, that we only have golf tournaments on Mondays, might have an event basically on the ceremony patio. Again, it might be a DJ. It won't be a loud concert, but so potentially a Monday as well.
But you would want the flexibility for any day of the week.
I would.
It sounds like there'd be
Yes.
other things. You said you have security on site. Has been and will be continue the rule.
That has been and will be.
Mr. and Mrs. Reeder indicated they didn't get notices of some of these events. With regard to this process, and in light of the 21-day notice, they would get notice of any of these events going forward, correct?
Correct. Well, we would like the flexibility to, send it out the one time in advance, the ones that we know that we're going to have. And if there's any changes or any additions, we will send it out 21 days in advance.
And you indicated that you sent out the notices with regard to, for a mile around. Would that include some of the areas that some of the other speakers indicated?
It would, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Newman.
Thank you. Mr. Reeder testified that there are regular Friday evening cocktail get-togethers with background music, and he characterized the background music as being loud enough so that he couldn't play his own music in his yard. My question is the music at those events, at those cocktail get-togethers, counted toward the 10 or 12 events? Is it amplified?
We were not counting them. They are Friday night happy hour. It is right by the building with the doors open, like the closest to the patio, not the ceremony patio site that's noted there. It's actually right up on the steps right by the building.
But it is the loudspeakers for that music are outdoors?
It is outdoors, yes.
Okay, but it's not counted toward the 10 or 12 events?
We were not including it in all the discussions we've had since we started this process. That wasn't included.
Would any of the mitigation measures suggested by the acoustical consultants help redirect or keep the sound from those get-togethers more localized or more on site?
Yep.
Great. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
And I have a couple questions. Thank you, Commissioner Newman, for your questions. One, you did mention security. You do have security. Would it be, what are your thoughts if we were to add as a condition that you must include the security number to all notices going out to neighbors so that the neighbors have a clear phone number should they have any security issues?
Sure.
Okay. And then if we, 500 feet was the city standard, but if we were to consider and discuss increasing it to 750 or 1,000 feet, what, do you have any thoughts or opinions on that?
500 feet meaning sending notices
As far
out
as the
to?
notices go, yes.
No, that's fine. We've been doing a mile, so we just kind of circled a mile around the club and sent it to everybody.
Okay, so if we didn't discuss and then end up changing that notification to 1,000, you'd be fine with it?
Yes.
Okay. And just to kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Newman had discussed, the cocktail hour, you said, is outside, but it's very close to the building. The speakers are located inside or outside?
They're right outside.
They're right outside. Okay. Because I guess I got confused. You said the door was open and people
We leave
were
it
kind
open so people inside can kind of hear, and people outside can hear too. Typically on those events, we have tables set up right by the building. It's not scattered, so it can portray all the way on the ceremony patio. It's just for people who want to enjoy music outside, and some don't necessarily want to sit outside, so they'll sit inside just so they can hear it.
Okay. And if we, I know this doesn't really relate to the live music, but I just want to put this out there for discussion. You have these kind of extraordinary events where you have Ferris wheels and hot air balloons and stuff being discussed. If we added or at least discussed a condition where at least you put that in the notice, if you know that there's going to be something extraordinary in this event, is that going to be a problem?
That's fine. We try to make all of our events extraordinary, so
if I
members
may, Chair,
enjoy them more.
I appreciate your concept of what you're trying to do. I would say that we're very clear with this particular agenda item that it was for the live music itself. We were not going to explore things that are inside, for example, or other type of events that might happen, such as golf tournaments or entertainers coming to a golf tournament, stuff of that nature. So my concern would be that we would be opening the door to what would count to be on a notice. So my recommendation would be that we keep it to what was live music as we have on the agenda, instead of attempting to add any possible unique event that might happen. And one of the biggest reasons is because everyone might have their own personal belief of what should have been noticed for an event, and so we get into a situation where we're trying to define that when we weren't ready for that type of control or condition.
Okay. Thank you, Assistant City Attorney here. That answers that. I have no further questions, and I'll turn it back to any other questions from fellow commissioners. And with that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and open it up to motions, thoughts, comments, discussion points. Don't all jump at once. Commissioner Lanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to first recognize some of the concerns with regard to some of the issues brought up in terms of notice and some of the noise issues. It's obviously very troublesome to make sure that you want to preserve the standard of living that you want to have and that everything is going forward the way it's supposed to go. In this day and age, golf courses, unfortunately, are changing the way they do business. If they don't change, they don't survive. So I do see lots of, Malibu Golf Course is out of business. There's lots of places that are having issues. So I do see that golf courses are adapting and trying to incorporate additional benefits for their members, so I can see the benefit of doing these types of things. And also I want to recognize and appreciate the country club for actually providing lots of limitations to make sure that actually it is done in a way that hopefully will be productive, especially if we get to some of the potential amendments. With that said, it's always an important thing to make sure that the neighborhood is getting along together and that it's a joint community-based process. I think from what I've heard briefly and some of the comments here, everybody is really supportive of the country club. I don't think that's an issue. It's just a question of making sure things are done in a way that everybody's on the same page, or at least as much as they can be. You're never going to make everybody happy, and it's tough, Mr. and Mrs. Reeder, it's tough to live right next to a country club, I know, with all of that going on. Then again, that's kind of part of being next to a country club. It's kind of part of the process. So what I would suggest, though, I had a few comments in terms of some of the things we've been talking about in terms of potential amendments, and sorry, Mr. Heer, for having you maybe have to look at some language. Increase the events from 10 to 12, limit the driving range events to 2, no more than 2 per year. The stage and the audience face the building. Security phone number to be on the notices, and notices within 1 mile. Those would be my 1,000 feet. those would be my suggested modifications.
Commissioner McMahon.
Oh, try that again. Okay, a mile is quite a bit more than 1,000 feet, and if they're already willing to do a mile, I'd like to keep it at a mile.
And Commissioner Newman.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone who came and presented tonight. I appreciate the concerns that neighbors have brought. I certainly wouldn't want to live next door to a place that had loud music going on all the time. At the same time, I very much appreciate the good faith efforts the country club has made to bring in an acoustical consultant. I think they've done a good job in their report of suggesting changes that will help mitigate some of the noises that are disturbing some of the neighbors at present, and hopefully would have a less intrusive situation going forward. I agree with the amendments that Commissioners Lanson and McMahon have brought up. I'm okay with a maximum of 12 events. I'm okay with limiting 2 events maximum on the driving range. In practice, it sounds like at this point we're really talking about 1 event on the driving range. We're talking about publishing a security phone number, and whether it's security or the front desk, I don't really care. I think having, in the computer industry, there's a term, a single throat to choke. A single point of contact is a good idea. If there is an issue, I hope with these changes that there won't be many issues, if any. But if there are issues, having a single point of contact, be it security or the front desk, would be a very good idea. And I'm fully in agreement with Commissioner McMahon that a mile is more than 5,000 feet. And since you're already committed to doing notification in that area, I think that would be a good neighborly practice, and I don't have a problem putting that explicitly in the conditions. I'd also noted the one very minor wording condition in condition 38, just changing 2 instances of the word establishment to applicant for consistency with the other conditions. And with those changes, I can support Commissioner Lanson's motion. Thank you.
If I may, Chair, during the discussion with the applicant, during the rebuttal section, you made a comment about going to 1,000 feet. And since that was acknowledged by the applicant, and even though she did say mile, I'm not sure she has agreed specifically to the mile radius. So I think it would be important to at least open the hearing up briefly, just so you can have the applicant make a comment about that, what I would call significant change to a condition.
Thank you, Mr. Heher. And with that, we need to call the applicant back up to the podium. Oh, yes, let's open the hearing first and then call the applicant back to the podium. Thank you, Commissioner Newman.
Okay, maybe we can meet in the middle. Let's do, 1,500 or 2,000 feet. We will go beyond that, and we will make sure that everyone is well aware of what we're doing and why. Would that be reasonable?
2,000 feet?
2,000?
Commissioners, any questions, comments? Commissioner Newman?
I'd prefer a mile since you've committed to do that. But I'm also okay with the half mile if the other commissioners are. But if you're saying let's do a mile, then yeah, let's do a mile.
Well, the recommendation originally was 500 feet, so we were trying to go above and beyond and really show good faith. to get and reach as many neighborhoods as we could. So,
As staff testified earlier tonight, that's a boilerplate, not boilerplate. It is the city standard. If there's a cell tower within 500 feet of my home, I have to recuse myself. I can't because it's personally affecting me. This is a little bit different situation since noise doesn't know the difference between, well, in energy levels, I suppose it does, but it continues to travel beyond the 500-foot mark.
Sure.
So I'm okay with the midpoint. I'd strongly encourage you one way or the other to stick with the mile commitment that you gave.
Okay.
Thanks.
And just for clarification, 2,000 feet is what you are agreeing
2,000, yeah, 2,000.
to? Okay. There are no other questions or comments from the commissioners. I will go ahead and close the public hearing once again and open it up for a motion, which I don't believe Commissioner Lanson actually made a motion, but he put out the amendments for consideration. I did want to just add, I believe Commissioner Lanson, and maybe you want to clarify, he did add the stage would be faced towards the building. I think that was one of his amendments. I certainly would like clarification before we all consider.
If I may, Chair, and if staff's okay with this, I think we had the supplemental scope of the permit approval for condition number 2. And what I would like to do is just read what I think encompasses a lot of the suggested changes, and I'll read the entire condition for the record. So condition number 2 would be modified to be read as scope of permit approval. The special use permit is granted to allow 12 scheduled live outdoor entertainment events per year consisting of live bands, disc jockey / master of ceremony, and individual performers, subject to limitations involving hours of operation, location of outside event, temporary illumination, and limited sound level for the live entertainment as conditioned by this permit at an existing country club facility, North Ranch Country Club, as shown on the submitted site plan labeled as Project Site Plan dated October 12, 2018. Individual performers, including those performers on a stage as a main attraction, using amplified music, not acoustic background music. Of the 12 annual events allowed, a maximum of 2 events per year will be permitted in the driving range section of the property. Any outdoor entertainment events set up on the driving range will have the performers face the clubhouse. And then for number 38, for condition number 6, we are changing the 500 feet information to residents to 2,000 feet. And then for 38, condition 38, we are changing the words establishment to applicant. And I would like to add that applicant shall provide the private security number for the security firm in place at any time to or on the notices that go out for the live entertainment events published annually or as required by this permit.
Your work's cut out for you yet again.
So some of these are they can be molded into different conditions that already address each of those different aspects that you requested. If you'd like, I can review those with you if you want the specifics.
Well, I just want to make sure there weren't any other ones that I'm missing as far as conditions.
Those are the ones I have notes of.
Okay, so we modified number 2, number 6, and number 38.
Okay.
Commissioner McMahon.
For heaven's sake. Did we want to reword that part about the extension cord that needs to be into the power surge? Or is it clear enough?
Frankly, what my recommendation would be is to actually scratch number 25. Here's why I would say that is if the fire department has to review a permit for a condition due to the type of event they're having, they're going to review the additional aspects of the event. For example, if you have a certain size tent that would be required, that would be something the fire department would be engaged in. And based upon that, they would probably put conditions on what they see out there as far as lines, or it could be anything, water, emergency access, etc. So I would actually scratch that one just because I think there's a little bit too much confusion, and the whole point of the condition is to ensure that not only the applicant but anyone who's reviewing it, staff, code compliance, police, fire, understand what is required. And again, I think for safety purposes, if fire is involved, they're going to probably do the whole thing again and review everything and make those suggestions at that specific event, because a lot of times it's a case-by-case basis. Again, it's all going to be based on what they see out there at the event.
So do I understand that even we're giving them permission for these 12 events, but each event they are going to the fire department?
No, what I'm saying is that there are times when the fire department has to be involved because of the nature of the event. And so if it's a huge event, which, for example, a tent or something of that nature, if fire is going to be involved, they're going to go out there and inspect the scene. And so to me, looking at number 25, I think there's too much confusion as to what that means. And therefore, instead of doing that, if fire wants to come and see an event and they're needed, then they're going to make their suggestions at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Newman.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up, Mr. Heher. Are you recommending to strike the entirety of condition 25?
That would be correct.
Thank you.
And I believe back to Commissioner Lanson, if he cares to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and here we go. So, I would like to make a motion that the Commission approve SUP 2017-70237 based on the findings and conditions described in the attached resolution, with the exception of the modification of Condition 2, as Mr. Heher has pointed out, with regard to 12 events, only 2 maximum for the driving range and the stage facing the building. Also, that a security phone number will be on all notices to residents. Those notices will be sent out within 2,000 feet of the location. We are modifying number 38, as previously indicated, and striking in its entirety condition number 25. And condition number 6 with 2,000 feet.
Thank you, Commissioner Lanson. Commissioners, any other comments? Well, I certainly, with no other commissioners making comments, I will jump in. I certainly support the project. I think what tonight shows is the importance of being a good neighbor. I think anytime you have competing interests, and we see it over and over again with applications, you have that balance that you need to strike. And I think between how long it's taken for the applicant to work with the city and come before this body, in addition to the comments that we heard tonight and the changes that you've been willing to make on the fly, and I thank you for that, and I thank you again to all the neighbors that came out tonight. This really goes to show that you can achieve balance, because I believe, coming back to what Commissioner Lanson said in his comments, is that a golf course, to me, is very similar to any retail store. Is you need to have change and flexibility in how a golf course is ran so that golf course can continue to be successful. I think we've seen, I believe, Malibu Country Club or Malibu Golf Course, one of them, but I know there's many throughout the nation where they're stuck with these large pieces of land and not quite sure what else to do with it. So I thank you for continuing to look outside the box and looking to see how you can mold and change your business. I know North Ranch Country Club's an important part of Thousand Oaks, and it has a clear and distinct history here. I thank you for also taking into consideration some of the neighbors' comments. I very happy to hear that we'll be providing very clear and distinct notification to the neighbors. And really, I think adding that security number to those notifications, I think will hopefully address some of these concerns that were brought before you tonight. So with that, I certainly am going to support the project. And if there are no other speakers or comments, I'll ask the recording secretary to please prepare us for a vote.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. And this application does carry with it a 10-day appeal period. Is there anything else I need to? I believe so. There's something. Thank you. And if anybody wishes to file an appeal, they need to do so within 10 days to the city's CDD department? CDD, I'm sorry. Community Development Department here at the city. Thank you. And moving on to item 8, department reports. Mr. Parker, I don't know if there's anything tonight.
There are none tonight.
Quick and easy. We'll move on to item 9, commission comments and any AB 1234 reports. Commissioners? And Commissioner Lanson.
I was advised that this is going to be the last meeting for our beloved Commissioner Pletcher. And I just wanted to say thank you for all you've done for the commission, for all you've done for me. I came onto this commission and I instantly was trying to find everything out I could from you in terms of understanding this process, and you were very gracious to give me as much information, help me understand this process. So I want to say thank you. The city is better off with your involvement, and I hope to see you again soon as part of this process.
Thank you very much. Commissioner McMahon.
I do want to echo Commissioner Lanson's comments. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I hope we get to work together again. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you, Commissioner McMahon. Commissioner Newman.
I too want to add my thanks for your service to our city, not just here, but previously on the Traffic Commission and in many other civic activities you've undertaken. It's good to have another cyclist and cycling advocate in the city. We need much more of that. And yeah, as others have said, I'm sure you'll continue to be active in the city, and that's certainly to all of our benefit. So thank you.
Thank you. I just have a few comments to make. I want to certainly thank all of my fellow commissioners for being very patient with me with all my comments and thoughts and questions. Certainly these two gentlemen sitting to my left and right for all their patience with me. I did want to comment just really quickly, as I've discussed here before, some activities going on in Sacramento that I think are worth noting. The Thousand Oaks Acorn recently published an article this past week about a lawsuit going on in Huntington Beach, brought on by the governor against that city. Just in researching the issue and looking, I came across something I thought would be interesting and worth noting. There's actually 50 other cities besides Huntington Beach that are out of compliance with their planning standards. And among those, the cities in Marin County, just north of Sacramento, actually have a Assembly member, Mark Levine, in 2014 authored a bill that gave the whole county a housing building exemption until 2023. The general consensus of the bill is that, well, Marin County builds very small. They don't build very tall buildings. So the idea being, well, we can spur housing by not having tall buildings, which will cost more. We'll just keep our buildings small, and then they'll be numerous, and eventually we'll get housing. In 2017, that bill was extended until 5 more years, until 2028. And it was done in such a way that it would avoid public comment and public hearing. It was actually done as a trailer bill to the state's budget, basically an add-on, or what you call, it's just a late amendment to the budget bill that gets passed in and then signed by then Governor Jerry Brown. What to me that really shows, just personally as a commissioner, is that we walk a fine line with what Sacramento's doing currently. To me, it calls into question what the lawsuit really was spurred by. Is it politics, or is it actually pointing out a city that is out of compliance? When you're able to, as an assembly member, make an amendment that would exempt an entire county from housing requirements that we all are expected to uphold and abide by, it really calls into question the whole process and standard by which the state gives us when they give us their housing RHNA numbers. And I know that, and it said in the article that Councilmember Bill De La Pena said we really have nothing to worry about in terms of comparing ourselves to Huntington Beach, but just it calls into question the what and the why behind the lawsuit. And I just wanted to share that with, my fellow commissioners and those listening on TOTV. And then finally, certainly I want to thank Councilmember Joel Price for appointing me to this position. It's been a great pleasure and an honor to, serve here and serve with all of you. I certainly want to thank my wife and my 2 girls, Ellie and Reese, for being very patient with me in terms of me not being home on Monday nights. And I will get to be home then in the future, at least for the right now. And then just a couple words of advice to the incoming commissioners. I know some have not served on a public body before, and it can be a little bit nerve-wracking, a little bit intimidating to be up here and making these decisions. But I wanted just to offer that, keep in mind that we're all, we're all part of one community. We're all part of, we're all one city. And I think none has been more exemplified than what's occurred over the last 4 months, and especially today at Thousand Oaks High School. People will stand up here and, you may come in with a predisposition on what you want to do and what you think is right. But when you come up here and you listen to people that join you up on the podium and they provide comment and feedback, and it's comment and feedback that you may not necessarily agree with at that time, but, listen to people that come up there because they are engaging in this civic process. And at the end of the day, we should be thanking them for coming here and spending their night with us to engage in the civic process. And realize that it comes from, a place that we all, in the end, we all want our city to be the best city it possibly can be. So just keep that in mind because, you will be faced with difficult votes and difficult decisions. But when you remember that we all come from one city with one goal of making it the best it can possibly be, you put aside any chance of getting into politics and parties and everything else that's going on, many, many levels above us. And you make the best decision you can, which you believe in your heart of hearts is right for this city. And just finally, just remember the one thing I was told by Darrell Reynolds when I started here, and I think it's been echoed very much by Commissioner Newman, is that we don't make the law. We're not policymakers. We interpret the law. So feel free to, ask questions of this wonderful city staff, ask questions of your fellow commissioners that have been here much, much longer than you. Don't be afraid, and get up there and make a motion on the first night, because it was told again to me by Darrell Reynolds is you have to talk, you have to make a motion, you have to get up there and just do it. So don't be afraid. The city staff will guide you and answer every question that you have day and night. They're very good at getting back to emails and phone calls, and trust the process that this is a great opportunity, and we all should be so lucky to serve such a wonderful city. So with that, we will go to item 10, staff update, follow-up items, announcements, upcoming issues, upcoming planning commission meetings. With that, Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Chair. The next planning commission meeting is scheduled for the 24th. Oh, it was canceled. I'm sorry. So the next meeting will be March 4th, according to the planning commission secretary. Oh, there it is, right there. Thank you. Outside of that, we have no more announcements this evening.
Are you sure? Okay. And with that, moving on to item 11. We are adjourned, I think, until March 4th. No, we're adjourned until March 4th at 6 p.m. And I just want to thank everybody once again and hope everybody has a great night. Good night, Thousand Oaks.